jumping in, or should I say continuing, as a mech commander, as a mech warrior, with some Battletech Weapon Tactica. Now we're looking at long-range missile systems and short-range missile systems, because one of the things that you begin to explore in the game as you gain some proficiency as a mech warrior aren't missiles. What's the difference between the two? I mean, I get the idea, LRM long-range missiles, SRM short-range missiles, but there is a little bit of an overlap band. If I'm playing a mech, the Dervish comes to mind. The Dervish comes to mind. I believe, and my fellow mech warriors and commanders will check me on that. It's got a mix of LRM and SRM. So there is an overlapping range band where it's kind of short-range, long-range missiles and long-range, short-range missiles firing. So from that perspective, how tactically do these different weapons, LRM versus SRM, work? And what are some of those action points as mech warriors that we should keep in mind? Now, of course, the soonest that you can reach out and lay down some firepower on a mech, you are going to start doing that. And the primary long-range inner sphere weapons are going to be PPCs, maximum damage, maximum range, but maximum heat. You've got to have the heat to clear it, or at least manage it. If you're playing a Marauder, you can't be blasting those two PPCs every turn. There's going to be a cooldown, or it's going to be based on kind of a rotating salvo where I might fire one, then I fire two, then I fire none. Then I fire two, then I fire one, then I fire none. So this idea, yes, I've got long range, but I've got massive heat. I've got massive damage too. Second, autocannons. They're kind of the middle ground, right? We've got to build out this template before we get into LRMs. You've got that autocannon. Think of an AC-10 or 5 or 2, mainly 5s and 2s. You got long range. You're going to be plinking away. Low heat, but you're dependent on ammo. And ammo, yes, as a campaign, if I'm playing a campaign or a really, really long mission, I could run out of ammo. But chances are, I think for most of us, if you're playing a one-off mission and you're fully loaded because you're not trying to shave battle value everywhere, ammo is not really going to run out. Or if it does run out, you got other problems, like the game is now moving into endgame and we're going to finish things out. But the offset with ammo, of course, is weight and size. It takes up a lot more. And depending on the mech, now you get into critical damage. And this relates to the SRM pack. So I want to just framework for just a moment before we jump back into LRM versus SRM. If I'm a light mech with ammo, missiles, or autocannons, am I really honestly worried about internal explosions? Meaning you've stripped away my armor, it's gone to internal, you hit that ammo hopper, and I just light up and explode. Usually light mechs have such a small amount of armor, I'm going to core out or just fall apart before that happens. Mediums, it can happen, but again, my experience has been, on average, by the time it gets to that, I've taken so much damage, I'm in trouble anyway. The challenge now becomes heavies, or especially assaults. This is why you got to learn to kind of spread out and mitigate damage by facing the best you can. I can have an assault mech that's inner sphere, pre-case, pretty well stocked with armor, but I've taken enough hits to one area, it's gone to internal. There's ammo there. If I get hit, my mech is on the chart, 80% still up, still in the game, still very effective, still very deadly. But you hit that one area and I explode. Now, of course, if it does go to that, if I take some damage and it starts to go to internals and I have ammo there, I might want to jettison, dump the ammo out so I'm safe. We explored that tactica. But really, ammo explosions are the bane of heavies and assaults. So from that perspective, autocannon explosions, it could happen, but we explore it. Now you get to long-range missiles. I have the checkpoint of ammo in that I am dependent on ammo. I got to watch my shots, and some LRMs carry more than others. And then, of course, I've got weight. Obviously, a 5-pack with reload weighs less than a 20-pack with reloads. And I'm dependent on the ammo possibly getting hit and exploded. But what I have here for LRMs over the autocannon and the PPC is I have a long range, one of the longest range hits in the game, that spreads over a variety of surfaces. And of course, depends on how I roll with the cluster hits and the number of missiles that hit. Obviously, 5-pack rolling legendary is like, okay, that's good. 20-pack rolling legendary, like, I don't know how many hits I can take with this. Average rolls for a 20-pack is still going to be kind of interesting. By spreading it out, it now starts to wear down the mech in a variety of areas. It really threatens lights and mediums because I just don't want to get hit in all these places. But it allows you to reach out and really start laying down some pain, start laying down some dice on the table. Sidebar really quick, mech command, tool tip for the day. You know, you got your mechs on the table. I've got my mechs on the table. We're moving on the hex map, doing this Battletech thing. Yeah, based on the mission or what we're playing, I might have an idea of where you're going and what you're doing. But the way that you find out generally how committed someone is, whether they're going for that objective or they're going to wait or it's some other plan, everyone's got a plan till they get hit, right? So just start laying down some dice on the table. Start firing. Yes, you need, 10 plus to hit. Start firing. Start laying it down. Then you're going to see what your opponent is doing and you'll gain some insights into that unknown known. So the LRM is a great way to do this. Now, tactically, the advantage on the side rule, if we're playing with the regular rule set of Battletech, as opposed to maybe the starter rules, you've got indirect fire. This idea that the LRM missiles can kind of work and arc over like artillery and land on a certain area. So if you have a spotter, we're not going to jump into the rules, but essentially, we're going to summarize them. If you have another unit, could be infantry, could be a Karnov, could be a mech, could be a bug mech, locust, could be a hover, could be anything. If you have another unit that can draw that line of sight and communicate, you can fire indirectly. Range, movement, and there's also a modifier adjustment for firing indirect. It makes it harder to hit. But this idea, if there's someone hanging out behind a building, you've got a short-range missile carrier pumping out dozens and dozens and dozens of SRM shots hiding behind a building, and there's only one way to approach. Okay, who's going up there first, right? You want to talk about area denial. You have that. If I can get line of sight to it from the side and stay way out of its arc, which is possible because it's a short-range missile carrier, I can just pump out some indirect shots at it. Even if it's only one SRM 20-pack, I can get some motive hits, I can get some lucky hits. I can, going back to what we were first looking at for the Mech Command tip of the day, I get some fire on that hidden SRM carrier through indirect fire. You've got to make some choices. Hang out, move, redeploy, take the hits, don't take the hits. So that's the first kind of advantage of LRM packs. You've got a big spread, and you've got the ability to reach out really far, inner sphere, and you've got indirect fire. Now, 5, 10, 20-pack, 15-pack, exploring these different options within there, that gets into weight and mech considerations in the primary role. Obviously, something like the Grasshopper with a 5-pack in the head is going to be plinking away. We're going to take those shots, but it's not going to be as effective as, say, a Cyclops or an Atlas with a 20-pack moving up. And that's not going to be as effective as something like a Longbow or an Archer with multiple LRM systems. So now a missile is a missile, but it's not a missile. Now we're getting to short-range missile packs. They've got short range. They do a little bit of more of a punch. They do 2-for-1 damage, but they still have a spread. But they come in 2, 4, or 6 packs. So now essentially what you see is, I just think of like as a short-range missile drum that when I'm at point blank, I press that button and it just fires these, dumb guided rockets just to blast out from there. Obviously, it's a little more tech savvy and tech heavy than that. A lot of different narratives to explore. But these are weapons that you are going to hit at close range. And I see them coming into effect at 2 points in the game, depending on where you find yourself and what's going on. The first is we're now to mid-game where some mechs have taken some damage, and I've got some internal points, either to damage a weapon, to damage a system, to go to internals and damage your mech, blow your arm off. It's about damage, yes, but it's also about rolling on that to-hit location chart to being able to nail you in that spot that has those internals. So if I fire a medium laser, there's only one chance to hit that spot. If I fire a short-range missile pack, depending on the pack, there are multiple chances to hit into that one spot. So short-range missiles are great mid to end game when everyone's taken a beating, and now I'm trying to hit in those areas. The other place that they have with the punch power on the spread, and don't overlook this. If you're a medium or even some heavy mechs, this could be a challenge. Having a short-range missile pack and getting rear armor. There's nothing more disappointing in Battletech than setting yourself up for rear armor. And you've just been you've been on top of this tactically. You've mastered the initiative. You've got the flank secured. You're doing this, you're doing that. And you're like, yes, I have rear armor to go on, Fritz's Warhammer. And you're like, pow, 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 blasting. And you're like, okay, I hit, roll for damage. Arm, leg, arm. You're like, I didn't hit center torso, left torso, right torso, where it actually has those rear armor bubbles. And even on some of the lighter heavies, there's not much back there. So if you hit something, there's a good chance it's going to go through if it scores 2 or 3 hits. So when you have short-range missiles with that spread, 2 points a pop on a hit for the missile, that can very quickly add it up. If it's taken into account, yes, I'm also firing a medium laser, and maybe I'm firing some machine guns. Rear armor with short-range missile packs, especially if they're a 6-pack, that makes me a little bit nervous. Not that I want to eat one medium laser back there, but that spread, if 2 or 3 can connect to rear armor and then you punch through, that bypasses a lot. I mean, that really cuts down heavy mechs. Assault mechs, yes, they have good rear armor, the best in the game. Naturally, they're assault mechs with that battle value. And assault mech rear armor is the equivalent of front armor to some other mechs, but I still don't want to take a ton of hits back there. So breaking this down with the short-range missiles, it's either to close endgame and hopefully finish some stuff, or through maneuverability, initiative, luck, or just good mech piloting, can I get to rear armor and hopefully hit more hits rather than having it go on the super ho-hum disappointment sad face of legs and arms. So tactically, jumping in as a mech warrior, as a mech commander, those are the entry points, in my opinion, being, if you're new to the game, to understanding the LRM weapon system, the SRM weapon system, and how, yes, missiles are missiles, but these two at long range and at short range are used very differently and for very, very different purposes in the game.